We are ready. That was the sentiment expressed by South Africa's permanent representative to the United Nations, who sat down exclusively with SABC News in New York just ahead of the start of the country's non-permanent term on the Security Council. Ambassador Jerry Matjila affirmed the central role of multilateralism in resolving global disputes. He explained how the country's posture was shaping up to be on some of the major issues facing the Council, including the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and the crisis facing the displaced Rohingya from Myanmar.
They've been observing Council processes since the beginning of October, and as an incoming member state, intense training for Team South Africa, while engaging in meetings with each of the 10 elected and 5 permanent members.
Someone wrote that this is a game of high-stakes poker. So to use poker analogy or terminology, how good is South Africa's hand heading into 2019? Briefly.
I think we are ready. We know the issues. We are trusted by the broadest member of International Committee, United Nations. People are looking forward for our voice to strengthen, to complement the working of the United Nations, to expand fundamental freedom worldwide, to resolve some of the issues through negotiation, preventions. We are going to use the theme of Nelson Mandela, the legacy, preventive diplomacy, negotiations, mediations. Intervention will be the last resort. So everybody is looking towards South Africa to say there are so many conflicts that we could have managed earlier on, here with the spirit of negotiations, of dialogue. So bring those lessons for us to deal with this conflict. So I think we are ready.
But with a council that's increasingly less able to meet the peace and security challenges that confront it, this message from one of its incoming members.
With the question of dialogue, which I sometimes find lacking, more of grandstanding, media grandstanding, addressing political constituencies than addressing international constituencies. Because once you are there, you are not a South African representative. You talk about Africa and the whole world. So as somebody sitting in Vietnam, in Samoa, somebody sitting in Nicaragua, sitting in Malawi, they have to feel that this council is concerned about their peace and security. But sometimes you see in the council very narrow nationalistic views and tendencies, which sometimes I think may not fit well with South African attitude of freer world, of peaceful world.
So in other words, national interests often trump the collective good. That's the point, right?
And that's what is worrying.
DRC elections near the year's end are being watched closely, as will be progress on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict ahead of a new peace deal presented by the United States early next year.
We have not delivered in 70 years free Palestine. We agreed at General Assembly, we agreed here in this same premises that we create 2 independent states living side by side. One state has been delivered, we don't have another state. So the UN must take its responsibility. Secondly, we believe that those who can influence the Israelis, they mustn't change conditions on the ground. Issue of settlement, prisoners, refugees, Jerusalem. Those are the issues for the final status.
We also asked for an explanation on the country's recent abstention in a General Assembly Committee vote to condemn human rights violations against the Rohingya in Myanmar.
There were the historic reasons as we move forward. But what is happening now, South Africa is saying the issue of interference and indifference. These concepts sometimes influence foreign posture, foreign policy. The thinking is we cannot be indifferent when we can see human rights abuse.
In this instance, what an independent panel called genocidal intent by Myanmar's military, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now we're saying, look, much as we don't want interfere internal affairs of countries, much as we don't want to undermine sovereignty of any country, we cannot remain indifferent when there are gross human rights violations. As a country that emerged from a very difficult history, as a country that has a Bill of Rights, a constitution that enjoins us to respond. So there is a huge and big reflection on these issues. And I'm sure you'll see, once go to Security Council, you'll see a
shifting posture?
Not a shifting posture, but a very deeper reflection on each and every problem, each and every situation.
South Africa begins its third non-permanent term since 1994 on January 1st. Sherwin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
We'll bring you your sports news right after this. Do stay